this is part 4. We're going to talk about Mulberry versus Madison. I always think of that. I learned a song and it's go Mulberry versus Madison. Madison take over. I always think of it because I learned names and dates. I learned everything through a song. Louisiana Purchase was that same song. I learned everything in a song, names and dates. I had no idea what they meant. I don't think I ever knew what Mulberry versus Madison was or was about, or neither did my teacher, who was my coach, explain it or probably really care. He might have explained it. By the way, the thing I said about ECC a couple parts ago, I meant to clarify. I think it's totally fine for board members to register early. Just, because I'm not willing to do all their work. I was just throwing that in there because sometimes when it's offered to you, then you go, oh yeah. You don't like it until it's offered to you. So I'm just saying absolute power can corrupt, and in government, it's only, in their case, it's not getting their kids, to get in classes early. In their case, it's money, power, influence. They're able to get elected. Sometimes when they stand by their principles, they're not able to get elected again. So it's kind of scary. Okay, this is Mulberry versus Madison. All right, you can get this. Don't let your limbic system go out and block and go, I can't get it. You will. All right. Once upon a time, there was a guy named John Adams. And there was another guy named Thomas Jefferson. I've told you a lot about these two already. They hated each other politically, and in the history books, basically it said they hated each other. Well, one day, Dr. Benjamin Rush, who used to be very well known, by the way, as a founding father. It's only in recent times where our 4 true founding fathers, by the way, James Madison was never listed as a founding father until the last 60 years or so. And I think part of the reason he is listed as a founding father is in his old age, he kind of rejected his faith and some of the things he stood for. And I really do think that that's why they herald him as one of our founding fathers. He was not in there. But anyway, Dr. Benjamin Rush wrote a letter to John Adams and said, John, you and Thomas Jefferson are going to be best friends, or really good friends, I should say. And you're going to write and you're going to be really good friends. And you're both going to be remembered well through history, okay? And you're going to die on the same day, which they did. They both died on July 4th. And when one of them died, which I think was Thomas Jefferson, I've said it so often now I always can't remember which one was which. When the last one died, he said, he yet lives, or he still lives, talking about John Adams, but he was already dead. So they died within a few hours of each other. And they were both remembered well in history, and they did become very good friends. So when Benjamin Rush wrote John Adams this letter, he said, the Holy Spirit revealed this to you. And you can go in the National Archives under Religion, Freedom in the Founding Era, and you can get the letters in longhand that they wrote. And so, he basically said, you guys need to quit this. You're both going to be remembered. Well, John Adams was a Federalist, which means big government. Thomas Jefferson was an Anti-Federalist. Little government, okay? So these two were on opposite sides politically. John Adams was like the elite, if you ever read about England, like the nobility and the lords and people like that, how they said, we'll rule for you. We understand more about what's going on. Thomas Jefferson was like, let the people rule. Now, people, let them have the power. That was the difference. Okay, so John Adams was the second president of the United States. Not John Quincy Adams, that was his son, but John Adams was the second president of the United States. Well, in a landslide vote, he only served one term. The people elected Thomas Jefferson, who was an anti-federalist, and they swept all the Federalists just about out of Congress. It was like a clean sweep. They did not want big government people making the laws. They wanted little government people. So the people came along, there was an election, and they said, all right, John Adams, you and all your Federalist buddies out. Thomas Jefferson, you anti-Federalist, and all your anti-Federalist buddies in Congress, you're in. You're the ones going to make our laws. Okay, so that's called a lame duck presidency, because John Adams was on his way out. He really, he just didn't have much power. The people already overwhelmingly voted. I didn't want him to have power. And so he said, all right, well, what can I do? Well, I'm going to make 16 judicial appointments to the federal bench, which is huge. I already told you guys how they can rule and they can be activist judges. So he nominated 16 people to the federal bench. Then it went to Congress, and the Senate ratified them. So he said, yes, 16 of you, stamp, 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 stamp. You can all be federal judges. Even though the people said, we don't want, now federal is different than federalist and anti-federalist. Federal judges just means you're part of the government. It's like we have, like in Texas, you can be tried in a local court, but if you're tried in a federal court, even if it's in Texas, that's more power, and that's federal instead of just state or local, okay? So federal judge is different than federalist. Federalist means big government, okay? So he nominated 16 judges, and the Congress that had been voted out, but they had 2 months still left in office, because the new people don't take over until January, Thomas Jefferson till January, they ratified, or they said yes, they confirmed the nomination of 16 judicial judges that were very federalist, very big government judges, which the people clearly did not want. So it really was wrong. People didn't want it, but they pushed it through. You see this a lot. I remember President Clinton made all these pardons, and they do a lot of things because they go, well, I'm going out of office anyway. It's called lame duck presidency, lame duck Congress. They're going out anyway, so they're like, well, we're just going to do this. What do I care what the people think anymore? So he made all these appointments. Well, his Secretary of State, John Adams' Secretary of State, was John Marshall. That's easy for me to remember because I have a nephew named John Marshall. So John Marshall was his Secretary of State. Well, when the appointments went through, they were sitting on John Marshall's desk as the Secretary of State, and he forgot to deliver the commissions. So he did not go to the people and say, you have a judgeship, you have a judgeship, you have a judgeship. He forgot. So in January, Thomas Jefferson takes over, and his Secretary of State is James Madison, who, by the way, didn't like the court or abide by the court in any way. So James Madison comes in and sees all these commissions on his desk, and he says, I'm not delivering these commissions for all these Federalist judges. I'm not doing it. So he just refused to do it. Well, one of the judges was a guy named Mulberry, and he wanted to be a judge. He knew he'd been nominated. He knew he'd been confirmed by the Senate. He wanted to be a judge. So he then sued James Madison, the Secretary of State. Get those commissions off your desk and deliver them to me so I can be a judge. So you have Mulberry versus Madison. That means the Supreme Court, okay? I mean a court case, sorry, a federal court. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court. So Mulberry versus Madison. So that's because Mulberry was suing Madison, the Secretary of State, because he wanted his judgeship. Is everybody following? All right, who was the anti-federalist? Thomas Jefferson. Who was the federalist? John Adams. Who was John Adams' Secretary of State? John Marshall. Who was Thomas Jefferson's Secretary of State? James Madison. Good. I knew you knew this. Okay. So, Mulberry versus Madison. All right. Let's throw another fly in the ointment. Are you guys ready? I know. So exciting. I know you can't wait. I know you cannot wait. Who became the Supreme Court Justice that heard this case? Who was the Chief Justice but John Marshall? Remember I told you my nephew's name, John Marshall, okay? So John Marshall, the very Secretary of State that forgot to deliver the commissions, now is Chief Justice on the Supreme Court. So he's hearing the case about his own self. So John Marshall is hearing a case about how he was derelict in his duty, and of course his party is very angry with him and couldn't believe that he didn't do this. It can be huge for all the decisions that they have to make. So he hears the case. He doesn't even recuse himself, which means remove himself and say there's a conflict of interest. He doesn't do that at all. He hears the case and he rules in, surprise, surprise, Mulberry's favor and says, yes, you are right. They were ratified and sent through the Senate, and they were confirmed, and they, not ratified, but confirmed, and they need to be judges, and you need to deliver the commissions. That was the ruling. So what do you think James Madison did? So now the Supreme Court told him you have to deliver the commissions. It's all right. But he never did. And neither did Thomas Jefferson make him, and neither did the Congress make him. Nobody made him. He never did ever deliver the commissions, and they did not become judges. Nothing happened. Nobody listened to that law. But that is the ruling that now the Supreme Court uses to say we are allowed to review the executive and legislative branch. It makes no sense. But because people don't know their history, they just go, okay, Mulberry versus Madison. Sounds like an awesome case. All right, so does that make sense? So he becomes a Supreme Court justice, rules that they have to deliver the commissions. They don't, and nothing happens. And James Madison says, all right, that's your ruling. Great, let's see you enforce it. They have no power to enforce, as we went over in the last segment, okay? No power to enforce. So that is Mulberry versus Madison. Lame duck means what? It means you're on your way out, you're not elected again, and you really have no real power. So a lot of times that's when people push things through. President Obama's getting ready to be a lame duck president right now because he can't be elected again for a third term. And so he'll probably push a bunch of pardons through. You'll see him pushing a lot of things through probably. My wedding ring's getting fixed, by the way, if you're wondering why I'm not wearing a wedding ring. It's been off. It feels weird. All right. We are going to, this is part 4. There's probably going to be 2 more parts, so hold on.